Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Ramon Foster Show. And as I told you before, we'll have guests in and out of this. And it's very fitting. We go from Kevin Colbert, who found talent like our guest here, to John Malecki, a Pittsburgh native, University of Pitt alum, and also a Pittsburgh Steeler. Once a Steeler, always a Steeler. But welcome into the show, man. Lek, how's everything going?
I'm doing great, Ramon. Appreciate you having me. Love hearing you going down the rabbit hole of getting on YouTube, getting into creating content. I know you've been following me doing it for almost 10 years since I got done playing. We got done playing together. I appreciate you having me.
Man, no doubt. And I was giving you a little backstory on how we were having this conversation because we were talking about guys transitioning, how hard it is for guys to kind of get to that point of what's next. Right now, training camp is going on, and you've been in numerous training camps as far as, you know, just participating in them. And right now, I brought up to them, there'll be a lot of guys, man, like this will be their last shot at like football. Today, actually, they're 5 cuts. Those 5 guys probably won't play football again. And if they do, they'll bounce around. And I just was bragging on you about how you transition, like how you got to the point of where, all right, I know I got to have something different after football. Like I'm not the top 1% of 1% to where I can just sit back and kick back. And that's not your mentality anyway, because you're a Pittsburgher through and through. But that's how we got to this point. And we'll get more into that, man, Lek. And yes, I call you Man Lek, man. It's our conversation. You see, there's always the locker room talk. Like you don't really go by your name. You go by a nickname or last name.
Yes.
But your journey, Malecki, University of Pitt, man. I'll be honest with you. I didn't follow Pitt as much as people up north did because I was in the South, in the SEC. What was that decision like for you to go to Pitt, and what was it like for you to be a hometown guy playing for the team that was in your city?
Yeah, I mean, it was it was a truly humbled blessing to have the opportunity. You know, I came from a high school that I think put like 2 or 3 kids in Division I colleges pretty much ever. And when we were young, it was Division I. It wasn't FBS, SCS.
FBS, FC. Yeah.
So it was going D1 was like the dream growing up, right? And there was one kid, he went to Penn State, and then another kid that went to Notre Dame within like a decade before I got to high school. So dreams of Division I were like every young kid. Pitt football at the time, Walt Harris was the head coach when I was in high school, and they made a run to the Fiesta Bowl. But I grew up watching, you know, Larry Fitzgerald and Rod Rutherford and Antonio Bryant, and Pitt was pumping out players, and they were really hot in college, and then got to the league and were high performers as well. So I grew up watching them. My dad grew up in Oakland and Plumboro, which is like right around Pittsburgh. For all the Pittsburgh listeners, you'll know that. And he was a Pitt guy, right? My high school, though, was just Penn Staters through and through. So I'm from Eastern PA. I'm from Murraysville. A lot of Penn Staters. If you just take 22 it takes you straight to Penn State, basically. Yeah. And that's where I grew up. So an opportunity to play at either one of those schools was always a dream. Pitt came actually to Franklin and had a great relationship with my head coach in high school. He called him and was like, you know, Bob Junko's the recruiting coordinator at the time. He's like, Junk, I got a guy. You're going to want to offer him. He's like, Junk was like, put him on the phone right now. And we're in the weight room. I distinctly remember this. I was just after my junior year, or my junior year. And he's like, you want to play for the Pitt Panthers? Come down to a basketball game. And at the time, Pitt basketball was at its like most elite that they had.
Was it the Zoo?
It was the Zoo.
Yeah.
This was like Troutman. You had they were making deep runs. I think they made the Sweet 16. They were ranked top 10. Like they were playing great basketball, and it was a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. And so my old man loves hoops, and Ramon, you've met my dad. He's a character. He was all about it. So we got to go down and go through that recruiting experience. They brought me in for a blue chip recruiting day the following week after I got off that phone call. So that's where like timing ends up if you follow high school. I go in, they finish their like whole blue chip spiel with all the kids in the room. He asks if anyone has any questions. My dad raises his hand and he's like, so you going to offer my son today or what? and Coach Wannstedt had just come to Pitt And so he was like, oh, yeah, but hold on, Mr. Malecki, blah, blah, blah. And then they brought me in after the blue chip day was wrapped, gave me a verbal offer. I got the piece of paper that following week, and then I canceled a visit to Penn State and committed like then. So for me, it was like that culmination. And Ramon, you might have had this same kind of feeling, but when I was in high school, I kind of had that like imposter syndrome thought to me. I was like, man, they might be making a mistake. I got to hop on this now.
A little bit.
And then, because I committed before my senior year, before we even got into like summer or anything. Like it was maybe March or so. So it was a lot of offers start coming in the spring. And I hit that early. So I thought that like there might be something going on here. And then I start getting, mountains of letters coming in from other schools and stuff. And I had a great senior year and everything, but I was super, super excited to be committed to Pitt and then go through a senior year. We won a state championship, and I, was first team all conference and all state and all that fun stuff, and got nationally ranked and blah, blah, blah. And it was great. We got into an awesome recruiting class. I think we were pretty highly ranked in the nation. I think it was a class 2006. You guys are probably familiar. Doran Dickerson was the number one athlete in the country. Nate Byam, he was the number one tight end in the country. We brought both them in. Next year, LaShawn McCoy came in, and we had a great run at Pitt there too. And Wanstat was bringing in some really highly touted recruits. It was a fun time to be a Pitt Panther. So hometown, it just made a lot of sense. My mom cried. I actually took a visit to Tennessee. For a junior recruiting, a blue chip day before that Pitt day. And my mom bawled her eyes out. She's like, how are you going to go so far away? And you've met Mama Malek. I couldn't break her heart. And so Pitt made sense. I don't actually know if an offer ever came in from Tennessee, to be honest, but that would have been funny, you and I playing on the same team.
It would have been. Well, we actually ended up becoming teammates anyway, which is so cool how football works, man. Like you said, the idea, the fear of missing out a little bit when you get those offers and they ask you, what do you want to do? I did the same thing. I was supposed to, the weekend I committed to Tennessee was the same weekend I was supposed to take an official visit to Michigan State. They had this huge snowstorm, man, and I went to Tennessee. And of course, me being from the South, I was like, no, not finna go up there. They canceled flights, and I went to Tennessee that exact weekend, and I committed then, and I was locked and loaded. And that's, like you said, the journey. And what specifically we will talk about a little bit more, man, like, is the idea that 1% of athletes that do make it. Like, and we're proud of being undrafted too. The undrafted call, so that's the journey that a lot more guys will take as far as the long path than is absolutely, just being the guy that's a day one starter. Like, that wasn't our journey, and I think that's a really cool aspect we'll get into in this next section. So coming up in the next segment, me and Malecki continue our conversation on his journey, being from Pittsburgh, and what else has kind of come out of his life with, him being a business owner, father, husband, all those types of things. So stay tuned. Welcome back to the Ramon Foster Show. We're joined by one of my friends, one of my teammates, John Malecki. And Malek, we spoke about your journey to Pitt and what it meant to you to commit there and play there, man. When you got to that point of knowing, look, I can play, because everybody has that aha moment. Yep. You're the man your senior year, as you said, go to college, bottom of the barrel again.
Yep.
You build yourself up, man, and you get to the point to where you start starting, and not just starting, you have that light at the end of the tunnel that said, I can play in this league. And speak about that journey from playing to being undrafted and how you got to Pittsburgh too.
Yeah, I mean, my college journey was a little bit unique. I went to Pitt because I wanted to play defense, right?
So yeah, that's right.
I committed to Pitt, and I was playing D-tackle my first 2 years at Pitt. I lettered my freshman year, and then I was a co-starter my sophomore year. And so I got a ton of reps, and I was loving it.
Let me say this. That's something y'all do a lot of, too, because James Conner was a defensive end at Pitt before he actually started playing running back. That's good. Y'all developed. That's beautiful, man.
Yeah, and with Pitt having no proximity to Southern schools physically, they bring in a lot of talent from smaller schools in Florida and in the Southern states, and then convert them to different positions that they potentially didn't play in high school, which was really cool, and we could dive into that maybe a little bit too. But I played defense, and then we got a new offensive line coach going into my junior year. I thought I was getting in trouble. Coach Wannstedt left his his business card on the door of my apartment. And so guilty conscious me goes into his office. He's like, call me, John. And I go in there and he's like, clean your apartment. And then he was like, do you want to play guard? And I was like, oh, yes, coach. Because how you are, it's like you're a young dude in college, there's stuff everywhere, right? Probably had a couple of things that shouldn't have been laying around. He asked me if I wanted to play guard. He said, the starting spot's yours to lose. And I was like, whoa. So I just jumped right into it. And I realized how much defense, and you'll know this, Ramon, is a lot more ability to harness raw talent in game. And offense is a lot more mentally preparing to then use your talent to achieve whatever you're trying to do.
Smartest guys on the field, easily.
Easily. So you go from this like being able to compensate for not having as much understanding of what's happening by being talented to then having to know everything that's going on before the play even starts, and then using your talent to make sure you can accomplish what you're doing. That was awesome for me, that transition from defense to offense. So I got into that role, and then almost immediately during camp, it clicked because I had a lot of skills that I've been working on for years from playing defensive line, and I understood like hand placement, and I understood I was anticipating a lot of things that were going on. And Ramon, you could probably remember, like I was a better pass blocker than I was a run blocker because I was a smaller dude. And that, for me, I think came from having experience playing defensive line in college.
Rushing.
Yeah. And so that kind of clicked for me, and pass blocking became something I adapted to quite quickly. And I was playing guard at the time. So junior, senior year, I played guard. Senior year, I was first team all conference. We lost by a point in the Big East championship, unfortunately. And we ended up going to the Malecki Car Care Bowl, and we went back-to-back bowls. It was Pitt's first 10-win season in 30 years, and it was the last one since last season for them. It was my senior year. So we get in, the season wraps. I have a couple agents that we're talking to. I ended up choosing one, and I knew the NFL was going to be a long shot because I am the size of a center, right? But I didn't have that experience playing center in college. And when you're only, 6'2", 6'3", 290-pound offensive lineman, in the league, that's not big.
You got to be unique.
You got to be unique. And so I was fortunate that I was quick and I understood the gameplay really well. I tell stories to this day about all of us sitting there in our meetings on Thursday and who was taking the test for everyone. No names will be said, but I learned like you did with your skill set too, Ramon. You learn to use what you're good at to your advantage and then work on the things you're not great at. And that's when I got to the league, I had to learn to snap. I had to learn to play with my hand between my legs. Had to learn to play both guards. Had to learn to short snap. Had to learn the long snap. Become as valuable as you possibly can. Just to fight to try to make a roster. So I was fortunate to get signed on draft day by the Titans and brought down to rookie mini camp and go through the summer, and then boom, released, 2 days before the first game. And then that's when I started to go in the spiral of being an undrafted free agent. But up until that point, what you said, you think you're the guy because in college, your first team all conference. I was a captain. We were winning all these games, right? I didn't give up a sack in 2 years. None of that. I was playing really well, and I was like, I know I can play at the next level. I just need a shot. And then you get on these, I played for 5 different teams, including the Steelers. But you get on rosters, and every team I played on, I'm walking in with guys like yourself and Pouncey, and I'm trying to compete for spots against you guys, and it's like, bro, Mark. I hope everyone that's listening to this show I know you can attest, Marquise was on a different planet of talent.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Natural God-gifted talent. He was on a different planet.
and he showed it every single day. And that's the thing that, I'm glad that you're on with us to kind of just break that down, because we're really getting into the nuts and bolts of what the business is on the other side. They've heard me play 11 years, but to hear your journey. And no slight, but your journey is very successful. You've played, you have games under your belt. You've been around guys and been on respected teams, but it's more like you than it actually is, like a Marquise or like a Marcus Gilbert or like a Willie Colon, to where they walk in and you're like, yeah, that's a dude. That journey to actually fight is a whole lot of stress, I'm sure. Grunting and making sure that everything you did was above board. There was no slippage.
Yeah. And you can't, you realize very quickly the difference between good and great is intangible things that you can't create out of things. Like hard work isn't going to get you there. No. You know what I'm saying? And like you get out there, Pounce is running a 4.85. He's 6'5" and 290 pounds. And you're like, dude, God didn't bless me with that ability. So I got to be good at something else. You know what I'm saying?
That's what I try to tell people. Like when they ask me what's special about Troy? You've seen Troy practice. Troy practices like a barely walk with a hoodie on. Dude. But on game day, man, like what was he?
He was like it was floating above the turf. Like literally, like he was a being within his own. And I was actually just telling a story about him switching between right and left hand during training camp, hitting in the home run derby. But like, dude, he floated on the field. Yeah. And it was impressive. I was saying the same thing about AB to somebody like 2 days ago. They were asking me, like, the dude just had intangible talent, still does, that you just can't replicate. Like, and there's dudes like that. And so as undrafted free agents, like we were to bring this back home, we're getting on teams and I think a lot of young players in the league don't realize how important it is to get on with a coach and get bought in quick. Yep. Right. And I was so lucky that, so just for a preface for anyone that doesn't know, because I'm assuming most of you don't, but the Titans picked me up. They released me before the first game. I got picked up 2 days later by Cleveland. I finished my rookie training camp with Cleveland. They released me, right? I go home. 3 weeks later, I go to a tryout in Tampa Bay. They signed me 2 weeks after that. I'm there for 4 weeks. They cut me. I'm back to Cleveland. They cut me. I'm back to Tampa. They cut me. I go home. I come back to Tampa, sign a future contract, show up day one in the next year. It's the lockout. And they cut me on that day. Mm-hmm. I don't know why they even had me bother flying to Florida. So that was like 5 cuts, 6 cuts, 1 season, right? I'm ping-ponging around all over the country. I'm trying to just make a team. And every, like you said, every reason I was cut was nothing to do with my skill set. It was literally like, we had a D tackle go down and we need the roster spot. We had a tackle go down and you play guard. Like, and that's kind of the name of the game. So I was fortunate. I don't remember his name, but that dude, after you guys went to the Super Bowl, walked off the field at practice.
Dorian. We'll just leave it that. Dorian.
But Cougs was like, he took his lunchbox and just left. Like, he, because it was a lockout, you guys were stuck without a player. I was 20 minutes away being a Pittsburgher, and my agent was Debo's agent. So he was on the phone with Colbert. He's like, I got a kid 20 minutes away. He can be there now. And so I showed up, and I came out to practice, and I remember walking into the meeting room on day one. Cougs literally said to me, he goes, and you'll probably remember this. He goes, what's the difference between a ton of feathers and a ton of poop? He used a different expletive. And I said, they both weigh a ton. And he was like, you're going to be all right here, son. And like, that was it. And more or less, I got the feel of the room real quick. Like, you guys were bar none at a different standard than the Tampa Bay at the time, the Cleveland at the time, the Titans at the time, and the other teams I played for. And I got in there and I knew if I had a shot to make this team, it was going to be outworking anybody else that wasn't a starter. And then making sure Cougs knew that I cared more to be as good as I possibly could to be on this team. And so I was super lucky that we went through that camp and they assigned me to practice squad at the end there. And so, and that's a grind. That was the first, training camp I went through and stayed with the same team.
Yeah, you came in hot. I remember that day. Can you imagine having one of your teammates that you had grinded in the spring, summer, a few days in camp, and he quit right before practice? Literally walks off, and there goes you, right place, right timing, and ready for the opportunity, man. Let's fast forward a little bit because the Hey Mon segment would be full of man leg just next transitioning, man. To play on Heinz Field.
Yeah.
Now Acrisure Stadium, okay? Yes. To play there, to put on black and gold, to see your mom, your dad, Mama Malecki, your dad just be proud, like wearing his overalls in the parking lot where the players park their cars, having a good time. We won't say what he had while he's having a good time, but you got the full feel of you are part of that Steeler Nation. You wear black and gold, and that's one thing I kind of always said a little bit. When Mason Rudolph took the field the other day, like he got booed. And I'm like, whoa, we don't know what guys go through to be there. We don't know like how special these opportunities are to him. So for you to fast forward to that point, and I played beside you at tackle, and I was like, man, Malecki, watch me and I'll watch you, because I shouldn't have been playing tackle later because we were riddled with injuries and stuff. But what was that moment, those moments like for you?
I mean, it was some of the most surreal, culminating life journey moments of my life.
Yeah.
Up to the time. You got to remember, dude, like it's funny thinking back now. Like I'm 34 now. I think you're a couple years older.
Yeah, 36.
We were like 23,
young.
25, like young. And your whole life builds up to these moments. And growing up in Pittsburgh, I watched all the guys that were out there. I watched Troy. I watched Ben. I watched Heinz. I watched Kiesel. I watched Aaron Smith. I watched a lot of the team that was still there, those older guys, the older core, as a kid, coming up through high school. And because they've been on the team forever. I walk in that locker room and I get to that first preseason game. And I remember looking at the back of the Malecki jersey, the jersey that had my name on it. It was a black and gold jersey. And I was sitting in my locker just staring at it. And Gilbert, he was all good.
Marcus Gilbert.
What's wrong? Yeah, I'm like, nothing, Marcus. It's just, this is I'm a Pittsburgher. This is something that doesn't happen to a lot of people. So I got to play at Heinz Field in high school, college, and the NFL.
Wow.
And Charlie, anytime I talk to Chuck, he's always brings that up. He's like, dude, you don't know how cool that is, man. You don't know how small that family is that did that in high school, college, and the NFL. And so super blessed. I remember getting out on the field, and my number getting called it was ironically the last game of the last full season I played, because we were riddled with injuries, and just being out there, weirdly against the Cleveland Browns, who I'd also played for, and get my hand in the dirt with you guys, and we were just making it happen. What I think was great was, and something that the Steelers specifically did, and our room at the time was great at, was you guys treated me no different than you would have any other starter, right? We all looked at each other as equals, and we had 2 first rounders in Marquise and David in that room. We had Mike and we had
Gil,
second rounders. They were, and then there was me, you, and Doug, who were all undrafted free agents, right? And so but pay scale didn't matter, right?
Nope.
None of that stuff that people look at on paper mattered. It was just a bunch of dudes with a common goal out there trying to get it done. And you guys looked at me and knew that I would step into that role and do everything that I could to perform at the highest standard that I could. And it was one of the most surreal moments of my life. I look back at the photos and stuff that I have now from it, and I'm like, man, was that cool? And it doesn't hit you until you until you get away from the sport. I'm super far away now. Next year will be 10 years since I played, right? That's nuts. Wow. And it flies, right?
Yeah.
But you get further you get away from it, the more you realize how intangible that thought and those moments are to normal people in the real world. And they look at my story now as I come up and, I'm making a name for myself, making content and becoming who I am in my business, which we'll get into. But they still go back to what was it? Same question. What was it like, to play on that? Now I'm a yinzer, so I'm never going to be able to say Accusure or whatever, but it's, what was it like? And I try to think back on it. I was like, for me, it was just another day at work. But now that the further I get away from it, you're like, man, was that cool? I wish I could have showed my family and stuff then. You had your boys were super young when you were playing, when I was playing with you, and then they got to grow. You got I think 5 more years once I was done. But those moments, it's just amazing. And the further you get away from it, the more you realize that that was awesome, and I should be proud of myself, and I should feel I should wear a badge of honor there, even though I was never a starter, right? I was never some superstar. Yeah. I was grinding it out, trying to make a team. I was super blessed to be able to play for the Steelers, and play with guys like yourself. And I'm super proud of it to this day. It's not I don't wear it as the first thing that I do, because I'm doing other things.
But it's in there.
But it's always there, right? I love talking about it, and I was a little salty for a few years there. I will say when they released me, I think a lot of us were. That was a rough period for you guys and myself. As a lifelong Steeler, it was we were transitioning offensive line coaches from Cougs to we won't drop any names, and I missed that year before Munch came in, because Munch was the guy who signed me at the Titans. So if I would have, if it would have went straight to Munch, I'd have probably played another couple years with you guys because I know he
probably would have.
And but I mean, it's all good, and life has a mysterious reason for putting you in situations. And my the way what I was able to learn about myself, right, and then be able to take that journey and stack it into the next things that I'm doing in life now. If I didn't go through such an abrupt stop and an unexpected, because we all thought I was making the team, like
absolutely,
and when I got released, and it set me up to now have a better mindset, I think, and a better appreciation for opportunity, and also to understand how limited and time constrained opportunities can be in business as I move forward. Because back to your main point, it's a business at the end of the day. So it was a wild journey, but it was amazing. Like, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Well, man, we got more coming up in the next section. It's the one that everybody stays for, Malecki, and it's called Hey Mon, and I'll be directing the questions today. So stay tuned. And welcome back to the Ramon Foster Show, and it's the only segment that really matters to people, Malecki, because we really dive in here in this Hey Mon, and I'm personally asking the questions this today, but the question is from me, Hey Mon, of course. So Hey Malecki is what we'll call it.
I love it.
How did you transition out of the NFL? Because that's something that people always ask the question. You're now a successful business owner. You do podcasts. You have media that you put out there, so much content, and not just that. The beginning phases of your woodworking to now you're working with glass and metal and resin, and just you're sponsored by so many different people. I checked your YouTube page, which I followed, and you all need to follow it too. He'll drop the link in a little bit. 663,000 followers on there. Like, you're a guy that most people know for this, for woodworking, than they do being a Pittsburgh Steeler.
Yeah.
So how did you grow that platform to where I always kind of say guys struggle, and you admitted in the last segment, like you struggled with kind of letting go of your baby, and that baby was football in the NFL.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, I think that happens to all of us. What a lot of people don't realize is your maturity level in your early 20s, you're not even close to having capacity to understand a lot of like human emotion and the evolution of who you are until you're like in your late 20s, what your potential is as a man for Mar's sake. But so you're in your early 20s, you're chasing this dream that's been the same since you were a kid. Let me say that.
Yeah.
So your understanding of the real world is very limited, right? And you're on a pedestal in the NFL too, so that you're taken care of, and all your questions, there's someone to answer them. When you're done playing, that goes away. And that's a huge like light switch in your life, right? It goes from being this like bright place full of opportunity to this real dark place with no answers. And so for me, I knew this was common conversation. So my college head coach was an NFL coach, dude. Dave Wannstedt coached the NFL. So he had experience and always prefaced and let us know that he's like, majority of you will never play a snap in the NFL kind of vibes, right? Wow. He's like, and you need to realize that your education and your preparation for what you're doing after football are hugely important, if not more important than your preparation to play football. So he was real big on the school stuff, right? So I graduated with a business degree in 4 years while playing football, and was academic all conference and stuff too. Like, I took school seriously as I did sports. So I knew whenever it ended, I would have at least something to fall back on. The next thing I also knew was that relationships were going to be huge for me moving forward out of football. And I didn't know if I was going to play football in the NFL, but so I took advantage of, while at Pitt, being able to network with other Pitt grads and Pitt people in the local community to make sure that if I was done earlier than anticipated, I could make a couple phone calls, potentially get some job interviews, get my feet wet. And something that I say to a lot of young players is that most people don't realize when you're playing football at Division I level, you don't have any time to do anything else. And so you go to class and you play football. That's it. You don't leave school in the summer. You don't go on
internships.
No internships. You get no real world experience, right? So when I graduated college, I was 20. I think I was 20 or just turned 21. And then I go right to mini camp. When I got done playing football, I had less job experience than anybody else that was hitting the job market, right? And so I'm 24 years old, 20, whatever. I'm trying to compete for jobs with kids that were just graduating college with 2 years of internships with the same degree I have that's now old because it hasn't used it yet. And employers don't care that I played for the Steelers, that I was a captain on the football. They don't care.
Oh.
They want to see experience as it applies to their business. And for me, I had an idea that was going to happen just because I got cut my rookie year so many times that I was like kind of dabbling and seeing if I could find a job somewhere else or if I wanted to keep playing football. So when I got done when the Steelers let me go for the last time, I knew it was like, okay, I'm either going to be a guy who's going to try to stick around and get picked up in a camp or picked up in a 1 week of practice squad and bounce around for years and cross my fingers and pray that someone keeps me around. And a lot of guys do that. They'll chase it for 4, 5, 6, 7 more years, and they won't really be on a team for a long time. Or I could just hang them up and then start pursuing the next thing in life and let that mental burden and that physical burden go. And that's what I chose to do. Is I played for the Steelers. It was my lifelong dream. I loved you guys. I loved the coaches I played for. I loved being in Pittsburgh. And when I got done, I realized, excuse me.
Yeah.
When I got done, I realized, I don't know if I want to go play for the Eagles or go play for whoever else wants to bring me in, right? So I told my agent, that's it. And I hung them up. And then I started getting into trying to figure out what I wanted to do for the next phase. We had another teammate who I was close with at the time, and we tried to dabble in a little bit of business together and such. We ended up parting our own ways, and I realized that I was really into the home renovation space because Chip and Joanna Gaines were huge at the time and still are. But I found like this passion for building furniture. And so I got into woodworking and a little bit of metalworking and stuff there. And I started a business and started putting it out there on social. Instagram just started becoming popular, and I started using that to gain a following, to sell product and to get that kind of kickstarted and going. And so I took the tools that I kind of learned by playing football, because I was always like a guy they put on interviews, right? I was a guy that spoke well. I was a guy who cared to present well, and took those things and just put them on the internet and made that the front of my business, and saw that there was an opportunity there to then kind of push that and see if I can make it into something substantial down the line. So my plan after football was to just not have a plan. There wasn't like, but it wasn't like football's going to take care of me forever. Like I never had that thought go through my head, and a lot of guys do. And what we all tend to need to realize is life after football is much longer than life.
It's way longer.
Yeah,
it's way longer. When I first visited,
it is, but you got to know that there's going to be something.
It has to be. And for the majority of us, there is something. Like I'm in radio and podding now, and it's a leap of faith. My wife pushed me in. She suggested that I do this because, like you said, you knew what you liked to do. You had an interest in those things. You just pursued it. But what was that I guess concentration to actually get it? When I first visited your shop, you had already had a building. Where were we at? In the waterfront side of town of Pittsburgh and Homestead. And you said you started, buying some tools, with some of your techs that you had gotten from the Steelers and stuff. How soon was that, and how much did it grow when you started to get more serious about it?
I mean, the start, what's weird is the start for me was, not about making money. It was more about trying to seize opportunity. Obviously the local business the local papers and outlets really liked seeing former Steelers setting up businesses in Pittsburgh, especially in somewhere like Homestead. So Barron and I got a lot of press from that. And that allowed us to bring on some clients. We didn't really have a business plan. He's much more of an artist than me, and I had a much more regimented business mind, and it eventually ended up being why we parted ways. But with that opportunity, we started to see that like working for yourself has no ceiling. Right. And so that put like that chip on my shoulder that's like, no one can cut me ever again if I put in the work. Right. And so I took some of the mindset things that I knew about football, which was like, I was always early to be there and leaving late. I was always in the playbook. Like I knew the playbook through and through because I didn't have those skills we talked about earlier. Those God-given skills. So I was like, I gotta be good at something here. So I applied that to my craft. I applied that. I still to this day take that kind of approach, and those things carried over. And then my just experience working with others and being in front of a camera, that limited amount that I started to apply that to creating content. And so I started investing in toolings to build furniture, as well as camera and equipment and stuff like that, to grow the content side of the business. And that's where I really started to see some waves, was when I started to really focus on growing my Instagram and my YouTube channel, and started to really push and move the business forward in the digital sphere, which is the game that we all play now in today's day and age, which is hilarious, because when we were playing football, you weren't supposed to be on Twitter or on your phone or on nothing. Now it's like they have to accept it, and it's a wild world out there.
They have to, man. I just got to say, you've done a lot of work around the city of Pittsburgh and other cities too. You've done stuff in very nice malls like Ross Park. You've done stuff to people's houses. You've been all around doing your thing, man. I just got to say, glad to support you first. One of the first ones to get stuff from you. I still have your coffee table up front. You did a cutting board for me. You delivered the goods, man. Even though it was a Tennessee cutting board, and y'all beat us.
To support you.
It's still good, okay? But man, like, as we wrap this up, man, where can everybody reach you, social media wise, video media, anywhere? Let us know where all we can reach you. We will put that in the description. And of course, some of your works is bar none to anybody else's.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the kind words. If you want to find me, you could just look my name up. I'm on all social platforms, but we primarily focus on creating videos on YouTube, and then Instagram. They're both under John Malecki. You could just search that, and then TikTok and I don't tweet as much, but I think what other platforms we got there? TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn. LinkedIn. Throw my name in there. There's only one of me. And I think I got check marks on everything, because there's a lot of weirdly people try to fake who you are, and it's a weird world we live in nowadays. But yeah, if you want to follow me, and you like, if you're into DIY or you like working with your hands to get your hands dirty, that's the kind of stuff that we do and create content around. And you could see a voluminous amount of it on the internet.
I think it's super important too for you. One thing that I caught that you said as we wrap up, you said if you go hard in your business and you are your own captain, basically, then nobody can cut you again. Nope. That right there to me was more telling when people ask that question, what separates athletes? How do you go be a pro? Like it's always those small little nuggets of, well, you beat me on this one play, or you beat me last year, or you said this. Like you find a way to get yourself motivated, and to hear yours as far as your business, like, you can't cut me if I run my own show, because I know what I have inside.
Yeah, and you have to be diligent. You have to be detail oriented. You have to do all those small things to try to take you to the next level. You have to stay open minded, and you have to realize that with your efforts come your results, and that nobody's going to do it for you. The greatest thing about the NFL is that, in football specifically, is that it's a team sport.
Yep.
And then the hardest thing about it is that you're an individual within that team, and you have to bring what you can bring to the table in order for the team to perform. Same thing goes when you flip it. Like, if I want my business to succeed, I have to bring everything I got and then support my team and my employees and everybody else that's involved in order to help them perform at a high level. So yeah, man, I'm super fortunate to work for myself and to be in a situation that I'm in. I'm super grateful for the opportunities that I had while playing football. Mm-hmm. And then if anyone listening to this is looking to take their experience in sports and then move it to after, keep an open mind, and also understand that even though you feel like you know nothing, when you get into the real world, you have a ton of skills and a ton of awareness to a world that a lot of people don't, and you can apply that to take you to the next level.
Beautiful, man. Like, man, I appreciate your time. I know you got a lot going on, and this is the episode that I was looking forward to with John Malecki on the Ramon Foster Show. Thanks, man, Leck.
Yeah, thank you, Ramon. Appreciate you having me.